you're not aware of Euromersive, it is a network of people working within XR throughout Europe, and different countries in Europe have different chapters. So I understand that in France, Euromersive is quite active, but in Turkey, we pride ourselves in being extremely active, both in the academic space, but also the creative space and within enterprise. So we created the researcher showcase just so that we could bring in people who are trying to advance the XR field in different disciplines, like in their own schools and universities, but also it can be private research as well. So we're extremely open as far as like how we approach research within XR. So this is our way of showing off the progress that we're making in Turkey and throughout Europe. So we'll see a lot of that tonight. And other announcements for Euromersive, like we have been like quite diligent and active this year in holding events. So we've held some in-person events in Istanbul, where many of us are based. We are planning to do a conference this year, at least one conference this year. We're holding workshops. For example, İsmail, who was our third speaker, İsmail Çendik, will do a few workshops this year, and they're always amazing. And in a couple months, we're also going to hold a hackathon at Özyeğin University, like Euromersive and Özyeğin. So some of our presenters are at Özyeğin University within Istanbul, and yeah, that event is going to be co-sponsored with my company, VEDX Solutions, where I'm the CTO, and we have a couple of representatives from VEDX Solutions as well. These two, it's them. So yeah, we have a lot of different groups represented here in trying to advance the XR field around the world, but. I want to turn our attention to our presenters now, who are individually going to show their work.
But really, my PhD was more definitely in virtual reality, and in a way, virtual reality is a very interdisciplinary field. So my focus was on architecture, spatial cognition, and embodiment as well. I did study architecture back in the 90s, actually, but I was already looking into, at the time we were talking about the cyberspace, which I still prefer as a word than the metaverse, but that's a different debate. But I was already looking at and thinking about how we could actually use the skills of the architect and the knowledge of architecture to create a spatial cyberspace, and how we can bring this third dimension in the web. But it was a bit early, and it wasn't really affordable, or university at the time didn't have any access to any headset. So I was very patient, and I worked mostly as a 3D visualizer with other architects, honing my skills as creating 3D and designing in 3D. But if you, next slide, please. But then as soon as we heard about the first headset, commercial headset, at the time it was the Oculus, I went straight back into the idea of doing research and see how I can bring, again, thinking about architecture. So I did start my PhD there, and I built my first VR application on the subject of the method of Loki. I mean, if you have questions later, I'm happy to discuss that further, but the idea is this memory palace, and really to understand how we could use this memory palace in virtual reality to really help and support a learner to memorize a deck of cards, a random deck of cards, and use the space along the way to record that. So I mean, that was great. I did this setup in two different environments, and we could definitely see that there was an improvement in the way they were memorizing the card when they were using the memory palace, in comparison to just a random deck of cards. But it was very difficult to actually see what was the difference between having this in one sort of building or the other. I did start to look into into heat map, but it was very difficult. So next slide. From there, I said, okay, how are we gonna actually really trying to? Well, yeah, that shows what I just explained. So we could see there was a much better memory of the cards when they were using the memory palace instead of the control group. But between the two, it was very difficult. So next slide. So from there, I said, okay, how can I really find a way to measure the effectiveness of architecture to support a learner and to even improve the performance of a learner. So that's where I create my second VR application. It was named the Immersive Virtual Architecture Studio. That was a big name, but it was all around the idea of a very basic game mechanic, which was a kind of a Tetris in a room scale VR. So to encourage the learner to use the space in the room scale VR, they had to actually collect the different piece of the puzzle in the room and then put them on the table and solve the puzzle there. And so to measure the performance, they had to do this puzzle in 4 different rooms. And so if you next slide, and the idea was to test obviously a couple of spatial qualities. And I did use here 2 spatial qualities. One was the complexity of the space, and the other one was the openness. And there is actually architects have developed some pretty interesting tool to measure these objectively. It's called the isovist. So the drawing you see there are kind of a projection of the room all around in 360 degrees. And from there you can get a few variables and a few. I'm not going into too much details, but you can actually start to calculate those spatial qualities. So there are a list of them. I just took a few here, and again the heat map there give a visual of this measure, showing maybe that the top corner left one is very enclosed, so everything dark is very close, and then the bottom right is very open with a lot of windows. And so that gave me a better understanding of the space. And if next slide. And from that, I was able to find some significant result in the I had like 35 participants for that, and so we could identify that the complex open solution was giving the best performance to the learners. Obviously, it's very early stage, and we're talking about a complexity of the space, openness of the space. The only parameter I was changing is really the number of window, and then if there was walls or columns. I mean, it's very basic, so it would require a lot more testing. And so I try to. So next slide. I try to put all this into a framework, that would be used by designer to design qualitative space that could support a learning for a learner, or improve the performance of a learner in virtual reality. But yeah, research is fine and all, but I think the best thing we can do in VR is, and for me that's the best time I had when I was running those users testing, is actually to have those users and those people testing things, and then you have the feedback, and then you can improve upon. So next slide. After my PhD, I decided the best thing to do is actually to open a design studio, and then we decided also to run a monthly event online. We use mostly Mozilla Hubs as a platform, and we work with artists and other designers, and we came up with those galleries, and each month we were having a party, a bit like today, but we were also having a lot of briefing with everyone, and we start to improve our galleries like this. So you see kind of a progression here with different scale and different type of galleries, and then different exhibition, and then we start to do some event, and also work with other artists to have some exhibitions. So various use cases came about over the last few months, and I think that's the best way to understand what works, what doesn't work in VR is to put it out there and to have people coming in and to test live, and so that's what we keep doing for the last 12 months. And I mean, this is a collection of books. If you're looking for inspiration, I just put that as a side. I didn't put them live, but it seems like maybe you like them. Yeah, it's a good collection of books to inspire you of creating and using architecture and spatial design to create your space or think about it.
Here, let me wave a hand. Hello, everyone. Hi. Hi. Hi, everyone. It is very exciting to present our work in this very interesting platform. So obviously it is my first time in here, as you can understand. I'm Gökçe Elif Baykal, an assistant professor in communication design department at Özyeğin University. And I will be presenting our work on behalf of my great colleagues at Özyeğin University, who are also in here. Ali Leylekoğlu, who is our brilliant student, who is just graduated from communication design, and without whose effort and talent, this work would not be possible. And also Bora Sezer, who is head of VR lab at our university, and Dr. Işıl İlhan from Industrial Design Department, who is the co-director of Design Interactions Lab. Next slide, please, Lens. So I will be presenting our ongoing project, which is currently at its very early stages. The goal of our study is to investigate how children's spatial thinking strategies when interacting with objects may change in different realities. So based on some cognitive developmental studies, interacting with physical objects facilitates children's spatial thinking skills, which are basically described as the skills to define or identify an object's spatial features such as size, shape, orientation, location, that sort of information about an object. So for this study, we're wondering whether children's spatial thinking strategies in terms of rotating, for instance, mental rotation, for instance, the geometrical objects, when solving spatial puzzles in different realities and in different gestural interactions. So next slide, please, Lance. So we have 3 research questions to investigate. First is to compare the interaction in different modalities, like how children interact with objects in fully physical environment or in virtual environment with a VR controller and versus with VR hand tracking. So the second question is to understand whether children's spatial thinking strategies, like while rotating or assembling the objects, geometrical objects, while solving the spatial puzzles in different realities. And lastly, what are the opportunities and challenges for children interacting with objects in virtual reality? Next slide, please. So we have 3 videos in here. And as the methodology, we will compare children's at between 7 and 9 years old interactions with objects while solving some tangram puzzles. We will compare these three conditions: physical versus virtual reality controller versus virtual reality hand tracking. And also, we will compare with and without gravity conditions as sub-conditions for each VR categories.
Okay.
but yeah, on the left-hand side, you can see a child is doing a tangram puzzle, which is presented on a picture with physical objects. Whereas in the middle, she's using controller with and without gravity. And on the right, similar task is done without any controller, but only with hand tracking using Oculus 2. As I said, Ali, our student, is the technical guy who has been working especially on making the hand tracking interaction possible more than 2 months now. And I'm sure he can explain the technical aspects in much more detail and accurate than I can. So as the person who is formulating the research, I can very briefly explain some preliminary results of our pilot study that we have conducted with a 7-year-old child. We conducted the study today after I have shared the slides with Lens. That's why our results are not in the slides, but I can very briefly summarize some main takeaways because we have not analyzed the data thoroughly yet. But the prominent results we had were that we were very much impressed that the child didn't even need a warm-up session. I mean, it was her first time using a VR, wearing a VR goggle, and she started to use the controllers right away, even before us instructing her to build a tangram. She started right away building one, and she enjoyed it a lot. And it was way easier for her to use the controller rather than the hand tracking. Not because she wasn't capable, but the system did not allow a smooth interaction with the objects yet, with the hand tracking. So the main issue is caused by the fingers. This is also a problem for adults, let alone a child's hand is much smaller. So perhaps this is something worth to further investigate in virtual reality hand tracking or control systems. Like how to make object interaction more efficient in hand tracking, not only for children, but also adults. So hand tracking part took much more time to do the puzzles, and it wasn't possible for her to even complete the task in 10 minutes. So also another preliminary observation is that without gravity condition, interestingly, for some reason, is easier to build these puzzles. So it is easier for the user to interact with the objects when they fly in the air. So for further understanding of the spatial thinking strategies, we have to analyze the gestural input data of the child, which we're currently working on right now. So I cannot really share the concrete insights, but hopefully in the coming Euromersive event, perhaps we can present those interesting results about children's spatial thinking strategies. So last slide, please, Lens. So thank you for listening, and we're looking forward to the discussion session for your questions if you have any, and if for the technical questions, I will address our beautiful and brilliant student, Elif, of course.
Okay.
Hello everybody, this is İsmail from Turkey. I'm Kastamonu, which is a small city of Turkey. I'm right now working as senior technical artist at REMIO, which Lance already told, which is a social VR platform, just like AltspaceVR. At REMIO, I am responsible for environment creation, lighting, rendering, optimization, and such related stuff. And in this presentation, I will be more focusing on script-able render pipeline and universal render pipeline, which is prior when it comes to rendering anything in VR, like for example. Next slide, please. So those all you are seeing in the screen is what Unity is offering us in terms of rendering. I would like to introduce you to those rendering technologies. Maybe let's begin with standard render pipeline, which is really close to being sunset from development process and will be replaced with Unity's render pipeline in the future. And it's not really far, it's really close. So it's about to be deprecated and will be replaced with universal render pipeline in the future. So standard shader pipeline was offering some great features such PBR, which was a new technology at that time. And but rendering approach of standard was not really flexible for artists, and artists were struggling most of the time creating something that looks gorgeous at the time, and it did not support easy to use tools such as shader graph, which makes it impossible for newcomers to build something that's good in a short time span. Then, thanks to God, scriptable render pipeline has landed, and it is of course supported everything that standard shader pipeline was supporting, but using less system resources and a polished interface was beautifully created, so you can build everything top of that. And scriptable render pipeline let people to tailor their own rendering solutions if they are able to do in an easy way, which was impossible with standard shader pipeline, which was about the sunset as I said. And then, as expected, Unity decided to fork two new render pipeline solutions for two main purposes, which one of them is lightweight render pipeline, which is now we are calling as universal render pipeline right now, and then HDRP, which we call high definition render pipeline. So I will be coming to those in the next two slides. Can we go next slide, please? So scriptable render pipeline was one of the best things that Unity ever created. Actually, you should be seeing some video of a custom render pipeline that a K0, which is the main guy of the Unity's graphics, did. But it seems that videos are not working, or if it's working, it's good to show. But anyway, scriptable render pipeline offered us a modular way to let us create our own rendering solutions with easy of use, and supporting the most of the devices and platforms available in the world. And then scriptable render pipeline, as expected, become professionals' favorites when they're creating their games, projects, and such. Next slide, please. Oh my God, finally, universal render pipeline, the best and the versatile rendering solution of the Unity I have ever used. By the way, I'm using Unity for the past 6 years, so, and this is one of the best tools that I have ever used. And URP lets you create your realistic and/or toon graphics in exchange using less system memory thanks to the scriptable render pipeline batcher, which is one of the best technologies in the world that are available right now for XR. And URP is an amazing and robust when it comes to rendering anything. URP supports post-processing volumes, a built-in shader creation tool called Shader Graph, VFX Graph, which is a brand new particle emitter solution of Unity, and amazing assets that are valid on the Unity Asset Store. So most of the projects that we are seeing in the XR world, including these AltspaceVR, is using universal render pipeline as a rendering solution. And yeah, universal render pipeline rocks for lightweight devices, and it is best for such low-end devices as Metaquest and Pico Neo, and which is the two competitive devices that are pioneering the world of standalone, low-end devices. Can we go next slide, please? And lastly, we have HDRP, which is really more focused on high-end devices and cinematic solutions and such. And another thing that I forgot to add for universal render pipeline is universal render pipeline is still on development, and it's not in the finished and finalized version yet, but it's coming. But the HDRP, which is high definition render pipeline, is almost finalized its development of the core features. So if you want to go and have something for like a cinematic VR experience or like PC VR and simulation stuff, you should go. I'm recommending to go with PC VR and high definition render pipeline. It's really extended and robust right now, and it lets you to create photorealistic results in like really easy, and it's totally built for that purpose. So yeah, If you are doing some hospital simulations, like surgery simulations, or ArcViz, or anything like that, my offering is for you to go to HDRP if you want some photorealism, but it's expensive. Like you cannot buy expensive. I mean the computer, like VR and device system usage. So if I say cheap, it's using less memory than like for and less memory and is more usable with low-end devices. If I say expensive, it's more likely to be PC, like render farm computers. That's it. So if you are creating a PC VR thing, in example, like ArcViz solutions, like simulations, surgeons, etc., I will definitely go with HDRP. Or if you are creating a cinematic scene or cinematic experience for VR, you should definitely go with HDRP. But keep in mind that it's mainly focused for PC VR, and that's HDRP, and that's actually wrap up the thing. Yeah,
All right.
my short.
No,
Can we go to the next
Ismail.
slide for the...
Oh, sorry. Do that. So if somebody on a research team wanted to learn these rendering pipelines, how should they do that? Where should they start?
There is, if they are working with Unity, which is too common in the XR industry, I will definitely recommend everybody to go for Unity's official tutorials plus Unite. Unity is holding an event called Unite every year, and in there professionals are demonstrating their experience, their expertise. So I will definitely recommend for people that want to develop something in Unity. I will definitely recommend both Unite presentations plus Unity's official tutorials. But there is of course some tutorials are living in the internet, so they can go all of them, like any of them. They will totally learn something from there. And I have my LinkedIn plus my mail account in the presentation. They can mail me anything. Yeah, I will try to help.
Okay, yeah, that sounds excellent.
Decentralized digital identities and SSI. And it is still ironic that I couldn't enter the room. And it's quite coincidence that's matched the title of my presentation based on Foucault's heterotopia. And I'm on the part of the philosophical part. Next slide, please. I'm Associate Professor Feride Zeynep Guder from Üsküdar University. I skipped that part, sorry for that. Today's agenda, actually my academic agenda I would like to share with you is related to the philosophy of the space or the using the space with in metaverse part. And based on his of other spaces. If you have read this article, published his this article on the Journal of Architecture Movement Continue in 1984, even before the internet. Maybe he barely caught the internet times, but he can how can we say feel that this is a kind of quasi-prophetic vision of the cyberspace as a multiverses. And next slide, please. All right, my this is my research trajectory, academic research trajectory, starting from linguistics background. I would like to invite other peoples and share their experiences with me, because I am new in this world, especially I have some politics and philosophy and sociology readings, but for the digital media and virtual area, I'm not I don't feel myself fully competent like you. As you can see, I lost my avatar. This is very interesting for me,
No,
but
no,
I am just a voice here. And
no,
then
don't worry at all. Like,
my existence
yeah.
here is the sound existence. This is interesting. In Heterotopia, Michel Foucault talks that, next slide, please. Let me summarize my ideas. I'm a little bit distracted. These are my research interests, and it's written one by one, and they are all related. They are most of them related to this metaverse and digital media part. For example, the identity and the surveillance of digital surveillance, which is called of data violence right now. The surveillance of our digital informations or data on based on the virtual area. That's what I'm trying to do as a academics. And also I am interested in algocracy in politics. Algocracy is the combination of merge of the algorithm and democracy. And in the futuristic aspects, we are all expected to be governed by the algorithms. And then maybe this room represents right now is the first steps of the governing the educational settings or society or any kind of settings. And these are, I mean, this for me, it's very, I'm very primitive right now. I feel very primitive, but I'm sure that one day I will be expert using my avatars and giving presentation. And I can share my research areas with and these slides with the others if you are interested. Next slides, please. And for these are my publications related to metaverse. Next slide, please. I don't want to get bored for you with reading my points. And these are the other things that, for example, self-sovereign identity, digital representation, and decentralization, and new communication types, and dark web and deep web are my other agenda to be published. Yes, next slide, please. For example, I read something that on the third line, there is an avatar to be inherited. We created our avatar, and then how can we inherit after our that? So we call this the posthumous existence, not now. After we die, our physical existence die, but our avatars can live. So the legal and the other ethical sides of these using avatars is my another academic study area. As we can see, that there are lots of surveillance type, panoptic, synoptic, and omni, and now the fourth one is the data surveillance. And this is very interesting part, and this is very important to be study more. And I would be very happy if you are interested in data surveillance, and we can I had already told you that I am interested in self-sovereign identity. We can see the self-sovereign identity. Skip this. Next slide, please. Is a movement to protect the identity by blockchain systems, because here there are so many phases of evolution of identity, and the last phase right now, the last step, is the decentralized identity. But how can we protect it from being surveilled or being followed or being tracked by others, or how can we protect from the bad users? Slide. Yes, these are my social media and other contacts. If you want to contact me, I would be very happy. And I would like to thank Lens for especially allowing me to get this experience. And I hope next time I will be much more helpful and much more
me. So if you want to send me a message on Twitter, you can send a message to lance@vedx.io. So VEDX is the immersive education company I work for. VR Special is my YouTube channel. So yeah, any of those ways, those will be great. So I'd like to, if possible, ask our presenters a few questions. So Pierre, are you still here?
Yep.
Oh yeah, Pierre's still here. Yeah,
Can you hear me better now?
Yeah. Yeah. So, so what effects do you see of people's behavior, like when they enter virtual spaces? It's a pretty broad question, but
yeah. I mean, I think the method of Loki is really interesting. I think that there is how I'm going to go about this question is so briefly, the method of Loki. Probably most people. I don't know if you know. Does anyone know what the method of Loki is? Actually, come on, use your voice, make some noise. No.
yeah, no. What is it?
No.
All right. So yeah, quick. The method of Loki is, or another name for that is memory palace. It's a very ancient technique. They were using the Greeks were using that even before writing, when they had a lot of information to remember. Well, if you don't write them, how do you remember? And it seems that they were pretty good actually at visualizing in their mind's eye the information, and by how they were doing that, by associating actually all the information they had to remember to the space they were in. So there is a myth going on that they were having a massive banquet, and they were I don't know, 10, 20 people around the table, and then suddenly the roof just fall on the ground, and everybody was under the room. But then there was I can't remember his name now, Archimede, who was able to remember the name of everyone, because he just remember the space, and he was able to visualize in his mind's eye everybody that was there with all the details, and so he was able to tell that to all the relatives. So that's how the myth goes. But then this technique has been used over by different schools. I mean, it becomes the art of memory. So if you look up the art of memory, it has been really used by people that were studying. And so the idea is really that if you I don't know, think about your home, you can actually start to have a walk through your home in your mind's eye. And then if you have to remember anything, you can just associate, I don't know, if you have to remember your presentation for today, for instance, I can associate the first slide in the lobby, and then I can associate the second slide in the staircase and put some details, and then you can, you know, be very creative with the type of trigger image and an association that's going to happen in those space. So the point is that people are using this for many years. They just use in their brain, in their mind's eye, visualize a space. So what VR comes to do in there? Well, actually, I mean, you can train yourself to really visualize walking in physical space, but you can also actually train. And now we have an infinity of space that we can actually train our brain is. So we can actually create as many space as we want, and then we can associate all the information we want with all those spaces. So it's a kind of a new realm that we can use to do that. So yeah, that's the background of the memory palace. And so I mean, yeah, in essence, as were always able to imagine this space in our mind's eye, I mean, virtual reality is just an extension of the mind, isn't it?
Yeah, actually,
So that's one answer.
yeah, no, actually, I'm curious about like how people recall narratives that they hear as well. Like, what details do you remember from a story if you experienced it through film or a book or through VR? Because I'm sure the different mediums of representation would mean that people pick up on different details as well. Have you heard of research in that
Yeah.
area, or
Yeah,
maybe?
so for me,
Yeah.
the way I went about the space is obviously the thing, like in movies, you can tell stories which are not linear. So,
Yeah.
you know, big directors, they really enjoy, you know, cutting and getting back in the time and so forth.
Right.
So you tell a story very different way. When you use space, actually space is kind of a way to sequence and to structure your memory. And you can't cut space. I mean, yes, here we teleport, but actually it doesn't work that well. So that was I was using room scale VR, where we actually really move our body in the space, and that's and that way we actually, and you know, that's the question of embodiment. We only we memorize better because we actually move our body into the space, and so the space is act like as a yeah as a structure, as a sequence. So it sequences your memory and it organizes your memories and your information spatially, so you can get back into it with your body. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
more, it's a very very specific way of organizing information, I think. But
Yeah.
because we are born with a body for since we're a baby, it works very, it's very powerful.
Yeah, speaking of babies, I'd like to include our Özyeğin group and Elif. So yeah, so Elif, like,
Hi.
why did you why did you start working in child psychology in relation to VR? Like, what
Well,
brought you to
actually,
that?
unfortunately, I'm a researcher in child-computer interaction, and my PhD was about children's physical interactions with physical objects and more about the tangible user interfaces. And as an extension of my PhD journey, let's say, I'm now wondering about the object interaction that can be offered in the virtual reality too, as in addition to the spatial thinking strategies. So that was actually it. And also this metaverse is sort of preparing itself for how to integrate in educational technologies too. So that's something. And children's interaction with objects is very, very important for their spatial thinking. We are actually, and my colleagues, of course, we are wondering how this interaction with objects in virtual reality could offer opportunities or challenges, and how we can, as designers, can inform the design for improvement, for instance, and to support that kind of spatial thinking processes, in a sense. So that was the main idea behind.
I want to add something. There is a very important parameter. I'm curious to have your point on this, but there is a paradigm in in cognitive psychology between object and scene. And obviously, I'm from an architect standpoint, I'm always very focused on the scene, which is the space, the environment. And you were obviously more focused on the object. And they are actually, from my understanding of cognitive psychology, there is a very different system of representation in the brain for object manipulation and for environment. And I think this is super important for all the community of VR designer to really take this into consideration. Do you agree with that? Do you have a take on that?
Yeah, I totally agree. The hands-on interaction is very important, and especially for the spatial skills. That's why this is kind of a critical approach that we are trying to take. That's why we're trying to explore not only the opportunities, but also the challenges in that sense. So we're starting with rather older children, like 7 and above. And we may actually extend our work by comparing these skills with adults too. So we're really curious about these interactions with real world and in virtual world in terms of mental rotation, for instance, how they manipulate the objects in terms of their orientation, that kind of spatial.
Do you pay any attention to the environment in which this is happening?
No, not the setting, actually, not the setting, only the objects right now. And it is
one of
only
my points.
Yeah. And also, Pierre, thank you for the question. I have a question for you. I saw one of the readings, Christopher Alexander, the design language patterns. I forgot the name, the pattern language that he created for making the participants, the citizens, to sort of empower and integrate them in the design process. And I'm wondering how you are inspired by that book for your study. This one particularly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my idea was to actually really look at all the architectural elements that we are familiar with. So a door, a window, a gate, you know, a stage. These all are architecture elements, and really, I mean, yes, we can use this in virtual reality, but actually, I mean, the ceiling doesn't have the same meaning in the physical world than in here. I mean, we don't really need a ceiling. There is no rain in VR. So I start to look at kind of this architectural language of all these architecture elements and see what can we bring and how actually look at the symbolism of all these elements and how can we bring that in VR and how can we use them. And obviously, I mean, the you know, it's all telling stories with those elements, not using them for what they were used for in created for at the beginning. So
no, actually, if I can comment, Pierre, that's interesting because I noticed in some of your images you include like impossible architecture, like things that could not exist in the real world because they break physical law, but within VR, like physical law isn't relevant. Like you can build any structure you want to. But like while all of these things are possible, like if you look at different like content creator worlds, you'll see them just recreating things that they're familiar with because I don't know, it just holds some symbolic meaning for them. Like if you go to every content creator world, you'll find a McDonald's, and like I'm just thinking, why are you building that? Like it has no function here.
Yeah. It's terrible. It's called, there is the question of geomorphism as well. It's very interesting, using all the windows just to be you know, the window, like Microsoft Windows is there, by the way. Do we
the
still need a
symbol?
window? I mean, no, we don't really need a window here. Why do we need a window? We don't have to protect from the weather.
Well, no, I read an interesting paper a while back on digital furniture. So, like, if you go to Google Scholar and search digital furniture, like you'll see like the function that different things hold, because we could talk about like chairs also, like what meaning does a chair have in like VR, or not even VR, but like any virtual world, because you don't
Yeah.
need to sit down really, but the thing is, they have a social function, because like when you put a group of chairs together, we understand that this is a gathering place. So the digital
Yeah.
function and the material function kind of diverge in interesting ways. So, but yeah,
It's the meaning of the object behind, and how we can use that. Yeah, exactly. No, this is very interesting.
yeah. So while we're here and we have Ismail in the room, I want to get more advice from him, because like he's like one of the more accomplished developers I know, just because he's largely self-taught and has a lot of experience like in his career already. So so Ismail, so if someone is looking to learn development, either because they're a researcher or they're thinking of it as a career, like what are the biggest mistakes I can make? Like what things should we avoid?
Uh, great question. Thanks for asking, Lance. Actually, I have a lot of them. Just now,
I
like
can't hear you very
not.
well.
No, I put it on. No, Ismail, go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me right now better?
Yeah.
Okay. Just go with a simple project which you can finalize and get something learned from that project. Because in my career, in early of my career, I tried to develop games like Grand Theft Auto, Assassin's Creed and such, and it's a mistake. Like it's something like trying to develop Half-Life Alyx right now, which you should totally avoid of, because you cannot do that simply. And another thing, my advice will be to buy some assets from asset stores before, wait, after creating something. Like imagine you sold something in the asset store. Let's try to do that, and then buy that asset or download that asset. Just compare how they approach what you are trying to do and how did you approach. Like this is something like reverse engineering. You can learn a lot of from there, I think, and that could be an advice. But that's, yeah, like just practice. Like
Yeah, actually
like
that's
see
interesting,
see.
because like I know people who become like electrical engineers and get into robotics. Like as children, they became interested because they started like taking apart like toys and electronics just to see what was inside. So it sounds like you're giving a similar approach for development.
Yes, reverse engineering is good thing to learn if you are trying to learn something, because there's already something has been done and you have done that. So just why not to go and compare how they did?
Yeah. Is anyone else a developer here? No.
Mayframe, this this guy standing in front of me right now is my friend. He's a developer.
Oh, nice.
He's really working on HDRP, and he has a small Unity URP experience game where you are in a desert, but before you are in a gallery, like an art gallery, then somehow you are going to a desert. It's more like a tech demo he created within a month, and yeah, you definitely should contact with MH2, but he doesn't have microphone right now. Very sorry.
Yeah, I'm using Unity every day.
Oh, great, great.
Yeah, I've built. I mean, all the user study you've seen, they've been built on Unity, and yeah, right now I'm full on using Unity, developing some virtual world using Unity. So
Pierre,
very much Unity.
are you on
Yes,
your MetaQuest 2 right now?
yes.
I would like to actually invite you to REMIO one day to review our alignment.
Yeah.
Say
No,
that
sorry.
again?
This is getting personal. Are you going to be in Laval Virtual, Pierre?
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I mean, I didn't.
Okay,
I
because
don't know. When is it?
Ismail, it's next month. So Ismail and I will be
Okay.
there. So we'll be in Laval.
Okay. Yeah.
Is that far from you? Where are you?
I know. Physically, you mean?
Physically, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I've been for the last couple of years in the virtual platform.
Oh, okay.
But no, I didn't plan to go there physically.
Oh, okay. But anyway, yeah, I think we should absolutely connect. I'm, or stay in touch. We're already connected.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm very much a Unity person, so I'd love to learn more, and I'm sure we can get in touch and yeah,
Yeah.
I'd love to ask you a few questions.
Yeah.
I was pulling my hair with the UV and the UV light map for the last week now, and
Right.
Yeah,
so
okay.
I'm
You
still pissed off
you two
with
keep
Unity.
talking. You two keep talking.
Sorry.
So you're the only developers here. So so Feride.
To notice everybody that these 16 of these months, like 16 March, I will be talking and demonstrating some lighting stuff, especially like map line lighting in a Euromersive event. So everybody's invited if they want to learn lighting.
What was the date for that?
16 March.
The 15th?
16.
16th. Okay, that's soon. That's like 8 days away. Okay. So yeah, here's Ismail's LinkedIn again. In case you want to come to that event, and it'll be amazing. I'll be there as well. So it should be great. Okay. We've been going for like well over the hour. So if we're okay, we'll wrap up. So please. Just keep in contact with me and also our presenters today. So again, a big round of emojis for our presenters. So yeah, because